I have a question for you, if you don't mind me asking one, Justin, because you got me thinking about the embarrassment of riches at defensive line, and like, there's a possibility. I don't think they've ever kept more than 10 defensive linemen. And like you talked about, like Puna Ford, big Puna coming in, right? Like Daquan Jones is healthy again. He was a big loss in that Bengals game. And then you got Von Miller coming back, Greg Rousseau coming off a good season. And the Bills still have AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, Shaq Lawson. So like if you're looking at like between all the defensive tackles and all the defensive ends, you can cut one guy right now for the 53-man roster, because I believe they have 11 right now, not even including Von Miller. Hold on. Von, Greg. I almost
Yeah,
forgot. I almost
you're
forgot
gonna make me
Michael
get
Floyd.
a pen out here.
Well, I almost forgot Michael Floyd. Okay. Not Michael Floyd. I'm sorry. I got that wrong.
Leonard.
Leonard Floyd. Thank you. Jeez. Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd was that wide receiver I wanted that the Cardinals drafted, and I'm glad we didn't end up getting.
Armchair GM, you're not responsible for
Exactly. What are you doing? Why would you not get that guy? Why would you draft Sammy Watkins or whatever? Puna Ford, Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips. I know I'm missing. Oh, Ed Oliver, of course. And I'm missing a fifth defensive tackle. I can't think of right.
Tim Settle.
Tim Settle, thank you. Okay, so there's 5 defensive tackles. And then you have Shaq Lawson, Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller. Now imagine that Von Miller starts week 1. Who do you cut from that group of 11 defensive linemen? Because you're going to cut at least one.
So the first thing I'm doing is I'm anticipating Von starting the season on the PUP list. I'm all about him putting his good vibes into the universe and, believing that he's going to be back week 1. I don't believe him. I know he's a freak athlete. He's recovered from this before, but he's older now. And I know a lot of like Trey White's recovery was, from what we heard, there was a lot of like mental reps that went into it with him. He had to get himself in the right mindset. But we've also seen a ton with this organization where they err on the side of caution with injuries, and kind of even to the extent of like holding out players for their own good. So I don't see him coming back till my anticipation is week 6. But still some tough choices to make there, right? For me, I think Boogie Basham he's getting put out there as trade bait for me throughout the remainder of the offseason. And hopefully he's not like, a Wyatt Teller where he wasn't going to make your team, so you'd flip him somewhere for a late round pick and he ends up blooming elsewhere. But I just haven't seen even enough flashes from Boogie that make me feel like that's going to happen. And, we talk all the time about, this 3rd-year leap that we see from, we had it with Allen, Knox. Who's the other one I'm missing here? It'll come back to me. But just this
Gabe
3rd-year jump. Gabe Davis to an extent. I'll get back to it. But the 3rd year being a big year in this regime. And for me, the issue I have with Boogie is how he came into the organization as like this. Well, Greg Rousseau might have higher upside, but you might see a bigger impact from Boogie earlier because he's pro ready. He's ready to go right now. And we just haven't seen that enough from him. And even with Epinesa, some mixed results there, but he quietly put together 6.5 sacks last year. I don't want to see him doing that on a consistent basis, like a full-time starter or anything, but I think he adds valuable depth rotation. I think the move that might be able to kind of put a Band-Aid on all of that is you cut Shaq Lawson, which pains me to even say, and sneak him back on the practice squad. We saw, he's basically playing 1 year vet minimum deals exclusively with the Buffalo Bills until he retires. So I think you can get away with getting him to the practice squad as a veteran spot, and you're not going to have too many people sniffing around him. And that kind of alleviates the numbers, lets you have time to see if you can do anything with Boogie Basham. But for me, if push comes to shove and one of them has to go, I would rather keep an aging Shaq Lawson at this point than Boogie.
Well, I mean, Shaq Lawson has proven more in his career at this point than Boogie Basham has at all, in the first 2 seasons. And you think about it, like, and I can't disagree with anything you're saying. Like, if we had to cut someone, they're not going to cut a rookie on a rookie deal. So they're keeping all Epinesa, they're keeping Basham. I think it would have to be Shaq Lawson. Everything you said, I think we can stash him on the practice squad if need be. I don't think a lot of people are going to come after him. If they were, then he would have signed there in free agency to that. Like the perpetual vet minimum contract, I'm all for it. Like, I agree with you. I like that, him in that role. I'm just worried that you won't get a lot for Boogie Basham in trade bait just because he hasn't done anything yet, and so like you're probably looking at like a 6th-round pick, but at the same time, like, do I want to? I mean, who else could I trade? Like AJ Epinesa, like he's in a contract season, like you said, 6.5 sacks. Like this is the year he's gonna like put out, some numbers. And what could you possibly get for Epinesa over Basham? Like maybe a 5th instead of a 6th. Not worth it to me. So I wouldn't even trade Epinesa, even though I don't think they'll keep him after the season, for now at least. That's it. I actually go back and forth. If it's a straight up cut and not trading, I go between Shaq Lawson and Tim Settle, actually. And it's not, excuse me, hold on one second. Sorry. So it's more of the fact that Tim Settle coming into free agency the season before this one was like, he was talked up as like one of the steals of free agency. I remember seeing a write-up about that, like under the radar signing by Buffalo Bills. Like this guy's going to be a stud. He was hidden behind some really good talent with Washington. We just didn't see it. And I think part of it was he was playing out of position. But I mean, if you're looking at between Tim Settle and Shaq Lawson has proven with the Buffalo Bills, he does have a concept of the system. He's played it before. He has produced, maybe not at a very high level, but he's consistent in what he does. We know what he is, what he's good at, what he's not good at. Tim Settle, we just haven't seen anything from him yet to prove that he has to be on this roster over Shaq Lawson. And as much as like, I was really psyched for him last season, I wanted to see more of him, and we just didn't. And everyone remembers a press conference where he was super stoked to be in Buffalo. Like that was cool. It's like, woo, like who doesn't love that? But we just haven't seen anything on the field. Unfortunately, he didn't have a good season last season. So now we're just hoping that this is the season where he turns it on, right? Like it's just, we don't know though. So yeah, I think I would choose, actually crazy to think, but I would actually probably choose Settle over Lawson. Even though I think you could potentially stash Lawson on the practice squad.
Yeah, and Settle would have been in my conversation if we had to go one beyond that. I'm still kind of, unfortunately, I'm still kind of buying into the hype from last year. I was so excited that he was brought into this team, and Jordan Phillips is kind of on that perpetual vet minimum, or he got a little bit more than that, but similar type deals as Shaq Lawson, where nobody's really going out and getting him. If I had to choose like between those two players, I'm keeping Jordan Phillips. Just he's had so many health concerns, but with more depth in that room, and hopefully he can stay healthy. We've seen Jordan Phillips be an absolute game wrecker, and I want to see that from Settle, and I'm still confident that it's could happen. But yeah, Settle would have to be kind of on the top of my list if we're going like beyond a Shaq Lawson getting crafty. And that's one of the things I love about this team right now is we just went back and forth for 5 minutes here on basically who our reserve defensive linemen are going to be. Hopefully everybody stays healthy, and we're having tough decisions about guys who hopefully don't really, affect the game all that much. So sweet problems to have with the Bills roster right now.
Yeah, exactly. So you choose between Settle and Phillips, because I found that to be a tough decision too. You choose, if you had to cut Settle or Phillips, you cut Settle at this point, right?
Yeah, I would have to, and I question myself as I say it because Phillips is older. We kind of know who he is at this point. He's had the injury history. There's enough of a sample size there that I think there is, just general durability concerns. But for his absolute sheer size, the way he moves, like big men aren't supposed to be able to move like that. I think he's got like this great moxie and energy and, gets people hyped up around him. I think the defense plays better when he's in there juicing them up. Who can forget the cleats that he wore with the table getting smashed on it? I mean, that
there's a lot to like, yeah.
For what it's worth, that stuff means stuff to me,
Yeah, no, me too as a fan. I mean, who doesn't remember when the Bills like beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving night and we were all psyched about it, and they show him like eating the mac and cheese with Shaq Lawson like doing the Ezekiel Elliott, like eating or just eating or whatever, not mac and cheese, but you get it. Like, yeah, that I love that stuff. I love Jordan Phillips. If it wasn't for the durability issues, like I mean, there's nothing to not love about Jordan Phillips. And the only reason he didn't do so well towards the end of last year because he was injured for like putting in so much effort to sack someone. I can't remember who he was running around the field, and he landed on his shoulder trying to like shoestring tackle him in the backfield. Kyler Murray? I don't know. It wasn't Kyler Murray. It was someone else.
I don't remember who it was either, but it was somebody significantly faster than him. That I appreciate the effort, but let him go, big guy.
Someone he had no business trying to.
He's just going for a shoestring tackle and he missed him by like 4 yards.
And then he ended up like hurting his like shoulder or something like that, right? Like tearing at something. But you're right. What I love about Jordan Phillips is, like you said, when he's on, he can take over games. Like, and he hasn't done it a ton of times, don't get me wrong, but like when Ed Oliver was out a couple of games last season, I remember thinking like, we're lucky we have Jordan Phillips because he looked good at the beginning when Ed Oliver is out. And like, there's a lot of players that you can say that you can't really say that for. Like, and I know Tremaine Edmonds has been gone for a while. Like, I would say that I don't remember Tremaine Edmonds ever taking over a game, specifically in the way that Jordan Phillips has, like, or some other guys that have left also, like Harrison Phillips or whatever, like these guys that have gone. Like, Jordan Phillips has that ability, so it's almost worth keeping him just for that. We don't know if Tim Settle can, like we're talking about like the depth of this, like you said, like 5 minutes talking about the defensive line, how deep it is, how strong it is now, especially with like Leonard Floyd now at defensive end, like I almost want to like have 5 defensive linemen, Matt Milano, and then just our secondary, because we have such a good secondary, such a good and deep secondary. Like, and linebackers are really our weakest point right now. So like, if we could just somehow maximize on that, that would be great.
Yeah, who's replacing Tremaine? Nobody. We don't need it.
Exactly.